we're really going to be limiting the guests today because I really want to focus on you. I want to give you as much as I can in these 3 sessions on how to apply some practical tools. I just want to get, I know that's such a corporate-y word, tools, but it's so important. It's like a toolbox, right? You know what to do when you come across really uncomfortable or really tough situations in our culture right now. And we're also going to be kind of unpacking and exposing the underbelly of the Republican Party. Is I want us to understand what really goes on behind the scenes of the Republican Party from several different angles, so then we can identify how to fix it. So the second session today is going to be all about healing the image of our party. And then the third session today, we're going to really talk heavily about training. Like, I want to really train you guys up so we understand how to keep the Trump policies, the Trump dance, if you will, his little dance, right? We want to keep the Trump dance going long after he leaves office. And what does that mean? Just because people voted for Trump, whether you like him or not, just because they turned out to vote, I think out of a lot of fear for our country, mamas were fearful for their kids. So that drove an urgency for us to turn out at the polls, but he's not on the ballot next time. And how can we can't sit back and think, like Riley Gaines was saying last night, we can't sit back and think that we've got it in the bag or return to any kind of apathy where we just let evil run rampant again. Okay. So I need to make sure that you have really solid foundation and some solid training tools so that you know how to keep this momentum going once he leaves office. All right. So 3 sessions today. First one, I'm so excited about this first one because it's so personal. Like, if we want to talk about the healing of our nation, we've got to start in our own hearts. It starts with us. Again, our panelists last night set the stage. They kind of teed this up for us today. And everything they said last night is absolutely true, and it rolls over beautifully into our content this morning. Let me invite Leah into our live stream here. Leah is my co-pilot today. Hey, Leah. Good morning,
guys. Hey, ladies.
So glad to have you here. Leah and I have been very busy behind the scenes planning this for the last couple of months, and she really has been so instrumental in helping me pull this off. Leah and I met about, a year and a half ago, roughly, Leah, I want to say, at the governor's mansion. We were both there for an event, and in Tennessee. Yeah, here in Tennessee. And we just hit it off. We've remained friends for all that time. And she was in Washington, D.C. doing some stuff. I was working with some people that she was working with. And God just brought our paths together, I believe, for this moment, because Leah is a force. She's worked with some of the biggest brands you've ever heard of. She's just got a vision. She's very much aligned with Lady Up. And I just thank you, Leah, and honor you for, like I said, being my co-pilot and helping me bring this to fruition today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for letting me be a part. And ladies, I'm just excited that you are tuning in today, and take some notes and share it with your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to dive into this first session and what you're going to walk away with in session number 1. Okay, this first one, which is called How to Heal America with a Return to Christian Values. You're going to walk away today with absolute confidence and clarity. I mean, like, no question ever again on whether or not we were really founded on Christian values. We get pushbacks like, don't push your religion on me, separation between church and state. We get these pushbacks. Are you a Christian nationalist? We get all that stuff, right? I think we shrink back because we're just not sure. Are we really founded on Christian values? Well, how could a nation founded on Christian values have allowed slavery? We are not really sure. And so we're going to clear all that up today. So that's the first thing you'll walk away with. Second thing is, now that we know we're founded on Christian values, now how do we attract people back to those values so that instead of repelling them? How do we make Jesus, I don't mean this to be irreverent, but how do we make Jesus cool again, right? In this modern progressive culture that's growing more and more hostile toward him every day. I do see a big revival in the church. I do see a lot of hope that God is moving. I definitely see that. But I know that we're not seeing it enough. Like, we need more soldiers, more Christian soldiers on the battlefield. So we're going to cover that today on how do we attract, not chase, and not repel people to our values. Then the third thing you're going to get today is absolute clarity on how to take a graceful stand for God. Okay, so if you're in a situation where somebody is just coming against you, how do you take that graceful stand and not shrink back again? Okay, so we're going to cover that today too. All right, Leah, are you ready? Everybody ready?
Let's go. Yeah.
All right. We're going to start off today with a word from my mentor. He's going to open us up. Dr. Ming Wang is my dear, dear, dear friend. We met on the campaign trail when I was running for State House of Representatives in 2020. He lived in my district and some people introduced me to him. I always had heard about Dr. Wang. He's a very famous surgeon worldwide, but it was neat to get to meet him. He and I just, our hearts just align. Like we have just a God. I just think it's a God thing. It was a divine connection. Our friendship has grown so deep over the last probably 5-6 years now. And he had just had a movie made about his life called Sight. And he grew up in communist China. One of the things that he always says, being an eye surgeon, is he says the people who appreciate sight the most are the people who were once blind. His parents were eye surgeons also in communist China, but in that country, you don't make a lot of money being a doctor, but that was his dream, to become a doctor. He grew up under Mao, where they shut the schools down. His dream was dead in the water, and 20 million people just like him were sent away to labor camp for life. God's hand was on him, and he narrowly escaped it and ended up in the United States, went on to get not only a degree from Harvard Medical School in medicine, but he also got a degree in laser physics from MIT. I mean, imagine that. Couldn't even speak the language and came here and achieved that. He's just the most incredible man I believe I've ever known. When it comes to his love for America and his appreciation for freedom, nobody has it like he does. So this movie Sight was put out by Angel Studios recently. It hit the theaters, did great, and now it's on Angel Studios. But let me introduce you to Dr. Wang. He's going to just pour into you a little bit as we open today on the price of freedom and how much we should appreciate it.
Hello, ladies of America. I'm Dr. Ming Wang, an ophthalmologist from Nashville, Tennessee. I appreciate Diane Canada's wonderful invitation for me to deliver this brief video message to you all today. Having grown up under communism in China with no freedom, I'm so grateful for my freedom in America, and I understand how fragile it is. We can never take it for granted, and it is our job to defend that freedom and pass it down to the next generation. That means we must get good at influencing those who hold opposing views and winning them to American values in a graceful and loving way. I want to show a little trailer of the movie Sight, which is based on my autobiography as an immigrant from China. The film is currently distributed by Angel Studios, which distribute Chosen and other Bible stories. Sight has won the Best Picture Award at the ICVM International Christian Film Award. So here's the trailer of Sight.
You are the doctor, they say, who can work miracles.
Hello, Kajal.
Street beggars make more money if they're legitimately blind. So the stepmother poured sulfuric acid in each of her eyes.
Maybe 1% of vision remains. There's no chance to save it. She reminds me of Lily.
I know as long as we are together, we'll be okay. I will always protect you.
There is some part of me that thinks if I can help Kajal out of the dark, maybe...
Let's take her! No!
I can help Lily out of hers.
You cannot change the past, Ming.
She doesn't deserve to suffer anymore.
Thought you said it was impossible.
I have to succeed.
I'm with you, Ming.
There's some things in the past that I can't get over.
Who says you have to get over them?
I hope you like the trailer set. You can watch the film now on andrew.com. Freedom does not mean that everyone can do whatever they want without consequences. True freedom is given to us by God, our Creator, and His boundaries and laws are what our country was founded on, and the only way it can be sustainable. We must meet people where they are at and not force them to our beliefs on them. Instead, we build relationship with them for those who hold opposing views, and we should be willing to listen and empathize with their viewpoint and gently guide them to see the truth for themselves. We have published a Common Ground Bible study in which we found that it's not only is a mandate from Christ to all the Christians to be the best common ground seekers, but also the scripture also taught us how to find the common ground. We established the common ground seeking steps, STEPS. S, see the common ground. When we meet someone who is different, if we are unwilling to see, we'll never find the common ground. T, trading places. As an eye doctor, I found that the best way to take care of your eyes is to recognize you are the #1 authority on this planet about your eye problem, what you see, what you don't see, because you're the only person who is seeing through their pair of eyes of yours. So if I want to take care of your eye problem, I have to see the world from your perspective, trading places. E, empathy. When we meet someone who has different opinions today, instead of yelling and shouting or even demonizing the other side, can we instead try the SALT principle, S-A-L-T? S, start a conversation. A, ask a question. L, listen, and then and only then, talk. P, pay the price. If the right thing to do, there's a price to pay. And final S is seek, actually put into action, seek common ground. Do you know who has inspired us to formulate this common ground seeking steps? It's none other than Jesus Christ himself. You see, Christ is a perfect embodiment of this common ground seeking steps. S, he saw the common ground with us as human beings. T, he traded places with us by becoming one of us. E, empathy. He demonstrated empathy even to the people in the lower surrounding society. You know, the Bible, the story that woman by the well, nobody wants to talk to her. Christ did. P, he paid the ultimate price by dying for our sin at the cross. And finally, S, he saw the common ground. He put it into action. You see, we're living in the unprecedented divided nation and the world. We're increasingly fixated on the differences rather than appreciating what we all have in common as fellow Americans. And we are increasingly unable to work across political aisles, racial divides, and ethnic divisions to solve the real problem that we really need to solve in America today. Gun violence, opioid crisis, environmental disaster, racial tension, poverty, education, healthcare, and jobs. In order to overcome our polarization found in common ground, we need to emulate Christ. We need to behave like Christ. He is the ultimate common ground seeker. You see, doesn't matter if you are Asian or Latino Americans, African Americans or white Americans. For all of us as Christians, we all have the ultimate common ground. That is Jesus Christ. Again, I'm Dr. Ming Wang, ophthalmologist from Nashville, Tennessee. And thank you. Best wishes to Ladies of America. God bless you all.
I love him. Isn't he just the cutest? I mean that, Dr. Wang, if you watch this later, I mean that in the most masculine way. But I got to tell you, when he was teaching the common ground seeking steps that he was just mentioning, the SALT technique, I had listened to him give this speech several times, to really listen, to ask a question, to listen, and then only then talk. And what I started seeing was that it's great. That's great icebreaker, right? That's a great icebreaker to ask to listen to someone first and then ask a question. But what kind of question do we ask? Like I would just ask him, I'd say, what does that question look like? Then what? And so he and I were just brainstorming on it. And I had a long career in crisis consulting. before I came into politics. And what that meant was I would go into businesses and I would recover them when they were just going down by the head. Hostile environments, everybody's ready to quit, the business is tanking. And my job was to go in there and win those people over enough to make them not quit, right? And then get the business rolling right again. And a lot of that had to do with winning people over, listening to what was going on, asking the right questions. So God's been training me for this work for a long time. Also, simultaneously, I had a professional career in songwriting. And you have a 3-minute window to engage someone, to get their attention, and to say a lot in that 3 minutes. And so messaging is so important. And the way we approach that messaging is even more important. Body language, all those kinds of things. So when he and I were talking about this, and we were just sitting and talking privately, and I said, we need the next steps. And that's how Lady Up America was born. And he said, you're right. And he has come alongside of me. He is the self-appointed president of my Founders Club for Lady Up America. He's been right with me through this whole thing, building it, mentoring me. And we've really, it wouldn't be what it is now without him. So I just want to thank Dr. Wang so much, not only for what he's done for our country. And if you go look him up, if you actually watch that movie Sight, you see the dramatic impact he has had on not only our country, but the world. You'll understand better what I mean. So I won't go into too much of that now because we're here to train you, but very impressive movie. I highly recommend that you watch it. I had the privilege of sitting in his living room and watching the director's cut when he first got it. And that was a moment I'll always treasure. So, okay, let's get to you guys. Now, if we're going to return our country to Christian values, we first need to establish that it was actually founded on Christian values, right? All those pushbacks that we get, we need to address those right away. Now, our founding fathers were so smart. They studied other world governments to see what brought them down. They wanted to make sure we were, as America, we were set up for success. And so they kind of looked at all of the common denominators. What brought Rome down? What brought the Greek government down? What are the common denominators that just tanked a culture, tanked a nation? And so when they were studying that, then they decided brilliantly, again, in that room where they were building our Constitution, they were in there for a long time, like they were in there for days, right? Just trying to come up with the best possible plan for America. They came up with setting America up as what we call a democratic republic. So we are not a democracy. We hear the left throw that term around all the time. We are not a democracy. We are a democratic republic. It's a very, very big difference. So I want to establish that right away. They knew that the only way for a country to be sustainable and successful was for it to be self-governing, the people to be able to govern themselves and keep government small. The bigger government gets, the more it's like a monster, and it will eventually devour its people. And I'll go into more of that here in a minute. But we are a democratic republic. If you have true democracy, what that looks like, just to paint you a picture, my husband taught me this and it's so smart. It's like 2 wolves and a sheep talking about what's for dinner. The majority are the wolves. So guess who's for dinner? The sheep. You don't want a democracy. That's mob rule, and we don't want that. Instead, democratic republic means that all the states have equal representation. That's why we need the electoral college. That's why we have delegates. It's very important that each state, whether you're a little bitty state like Rhode Island or you're a big old state like California, you have equal representation at the table. That's the difference. Okay. So that's first. But going back to the idea that we have to be self-governing. The best way for us to be self-governing is to answer to an audience of one, right? God, he's our creator. They all were very clear on the fact that if we don't have a religious, moral nation who is answering to Almighty God under Christianity, that our country is toast. If we can't have one moral compass for our society, we all can agree on what's right or wrong. It's not saying you have to be a Christian to live in America. They're not saying that. They're just saying that this is the governing structure for America. Christianity is the most humane, It is the kindest. It is the most, it provides the most potential for people to reach their God-given purpose. There's a freedom in Christianity because it's based on a want to, not a have to. Just like Dr. Wang was saying, Jesus invites us. Nobody pushes in the Christian faith. At least they're not supposed to. We have bad eggs. Okay. We have some, but the way that it's supposed to work, the way Jesus modeled it for us, is for him to invite us to the faith. And then he traded places. He made the most ultimate sacrifice for us. He loved us so much that he laid his life down. It's a choice. He's inviting us into that faith, but he's not pushing it on us. All right. So that's the way. And everyone who lived in America at the time, the large majority of Americans at the time held that same faith in Christianity. Everyone just was a Christian majority. So we know that there have been times in history where the Christian, under the Catholic Church and things like that, they've been very, very cruel. And I'm not denying that. But again, people are cruel. But Christianity, the way that it is set up, is not cruel. It is an opportunity to flourish, the opportunity for everyone to flourish. All right. So they set us up as a Christian nation, no denomination. They're not saying America's Catholic, America's Baptist. They weren't saying that. They were just saying this is God is the umpire between who's right and who's wrong. And we're not going to have any other gauge for that other than the Bible. All right. So that was how we could be a self-governing nation. And I want to prove it to you because a lot of people say, oh, that's not true. That's not true. Well, let me just show you this. This is a quote from George Washington. Now, he says, whatever may be conceded to the influence of refined education on minds of peculiar structure, reason and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principles. So let's just kind of break that down for a second, thinking about that. So basically that first line is saying, no matter how refined your education is, no matter how knowledgeable you get, no matter how many degrees, how many ABC letters are after your name, there's no way that this country can sustain itself, can prevail in exclusion of religious principles. Both reason and experience forbid us to expect that it ever could. All right, so that is from George Washington, our top founding father. All right, and I want to just say this too, that knowledge and wisdom are very, very different things. You can have all the book smart in the world. You can. My husband's got so many degrees. Like you can have so much education. I personally did not finish college, so I can't boast in any of that. But even look at Dr. Wang, a degree in both medicine and laser physics. No matter how smart you are, wisdom is a whole other animal. Wisdom comes from God. God says, knock on the door of wisdom and he will answer. If you ask him for wisdom, he will pour it out on you. But wisdom gives us the context, right? It tells us how that knowledge is applied. It's a very, very different place to come from. Wisdom got that in spades. School of Hard Knocks. I mean, and I think those of us who've been following Christ for a while, we can relate that God is so gracious in pouring out that wisdom on us. But knowledge is a whole different thing. And Ronald Reagan said something really funny one time. He says, it's not that our liberal friends are stupid. It's just they know so much about that which isn't so. And that's so true. So true. All right. And I will say this too. Our founding fathers knew that the best form of self-governance was the nuclear family. Think about it. Now, I know a lot of us, me included, and I'm going to tell you my story in a second. A lot of us have had our nuclear families obliterated, especially since the 70s. Yes, that's true. But God's design, again, people let us down, right? But God's design is perfect. And his design was that dad would be fully submitted to God. In other words, obedient, reverent, humble, in love with God, that he would get that wisdom I was just talking about from God. And then his wife was his helpmate, right? His wife was his partner in the home. And his wife had great emotional intelligence, and she had great ideas, and we can, come up with so many neat and great ways to do things. And she's to influence her husband. But God does tell us, and I'm fully on board with this now. There was a time in my independent days when I would have never been on board with this, but I understand the context of it now. Wives are supposed to submit to their husbands, not be oppressed by them, not be abused by them. But when they submit, basically what that means is they yield to their husbands. They bring their ideas, they bring their suggestions, they bring their opinions, all of that. And then dad, the husband, is supposed to then take that to God and let God give him wisdom on what to do. And he has the final say. That's the way it's supposed to work. And then the kids understand that hierarchy, and the kids then have respect for mom and dad. And what goes on in the home spills out onto the city streets, spills out into the neighborhoods, into the suburbs. And we're seeing that play out now. When you have an absence of God's design for the nuclear family, you have chaos. Again, I saw that firsthand. And I'm going to go into more of that in the next session. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time going into that now, but believe me when I tell you, I've been on all sides of that. And I'm the poster child for my sister and I. We are the poster child for the wake of the destruction of the nuclear family. It for those of you who might, like me, I'm 54. I was born in 1970, right at the cusp of when divorce was becoming mainstream. It was when divorce was all of a sudden acceptable, and it kind of became normalized. And we were told things like, oh, kids are resilient, kids can bounce back, all of that. It wasn't true. The years and years of therapy that a lot of us have had as a result of that is proof positive. My friend Julie, who was on last night, she can tell you, when the nuclear family breaks down, it has lasting, massive impact on the kids. All right. But we needed to keep the nuclear family intact. That's what our founding fathers knew. Now, let's move on a little bit. The early rules, when we were still colonies, we had not had the Revolutionary War yet. We had 13 original colonies, if you remember. There was a law. I don't know if it was an official law. I guess it was a law that in order to serve in the Continental Congress, you had to be a Christian. So that's proof number one. Did y'all know that? You had to be a Christian. It makes sense. If our country is set up on biblical values, it would make sense that the leaders in Congress making the laws are basing them off the Bible. Common sense, right? There was also, proof number two is there was also a Bible that was approved by Congress. And let me tell you all about this. After the Revolutionary War, we won our independence from Great Britain. You remember the big war went down. We were like, we're done. We want independence. We celebrated our independence, and now we're a nation. Now this is the time when our founding fathers were going into the deliberation room and trying to set up our Congress, all of that. Well, after the Revolutionary War, around the 1780s, I want to say 1782, I think it was, we had been cut off from trade from Great Britain. And so we no longer had Bibles being shipped to us. We were running out as our nation started to populate. People were making families, having babies, and spreading out and moving into the West. We were running out of Bibles. And so Robert Aitken already kind of had an in with Congress because he was a printer, and he had been responsible for the journals of Congress. So he went to Congress and he said, hey, we're running out of Bibles. They commissioned him to print the first American Bible. And not only did he get permission to print it, but he also was told by Congress, given permission by Congress to send it out to Americans as the way to self-govern. So this was the gauge. This was the guideline on how to live your life, biblical principles. Now, again, that was in 1782. Think about how long ago that is. Well, Stephen, my friend who has started the American Bible Project, he is putting these replicas of these Bibles back in schools right now all over the country. He's put them into the hands of all of our legislators, both at the federal and the local levels in many, many states. But he's putting them back in schools under the historical context. But so this is a replica, but he had one of the original Aitken Bibles. And he brought it. He and I are good friends. Dr. Wang is also very embedded in his work. And Stephen came to the studio and he let me hold one of the first American Bibles. Look at that. That's from 1782, one of the originals. Such an honor to get to hold that Bible. So it was pretty surreal, actually, pretty surreal to get to hold it. He normally keeps it in a protected box, but he took it out and he let me hold it. So it was pretty cool. All right. So that's proof number 2. All right. So proof number 1, you had to be a Christian to run for Congress. Proof number 2, the Aitken Bible, approved by Congress, sent out to all Americans as a way to live our lives. So that's the second. Now, the third proof here, we get that pushback about separation between church and state, right? Don't push your religion, separation between church and state. Did you know there is absolutely nowhere in any of our founding documents where that term is displayed? Nowhere in the Constitution does it say there's a separation between church and state. What people have done, again, context, wisdom, people have taken it out of context. That was a letter that was written by Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist Church, assuring them that government would stay out of their business. And what people have done now is they've taken that and they've kind of twisted it, distorted it to make it seem like it was some kind of a law. Now, there is a clause in our Constitution. Let me just grab that here for you. It is the Establishment Clause. I'm trying to find it here in my notes. The Establishment Clause. Here it is. So the First Amendment in the Constitution, and what it basically does is it's saying that government will not set up they will not establish a religion. So in other words, they're not going to say every American has to be Catholic or else. Like what happened in Britain. There was a Protestant king, George, and he insisted that everyone be a certain religion. Our founding fathers were completely opposed to tyrannical governments like that, imposing their religious beliefs on their people. So what they were trying to do is basically say, we're not going to do that in America. We're not going to force everyone. Like you go to Iran, I mean, it's Islam, and Islam is the law of the land, and they force that on their people, whether they believe or not, and they force them to believe. If you don't believe, it's, kind of lights out for you. But there's all these other nations are perfectly happy, unapologetic about imposing their religious beliefs. But America, we wanted to be a free nation. And again, to get the want to out of people, not the have to. But the Establishment Clause, again, has been twisted, distorted, and they kind of pull from that Danbury letter and they tell us, separation between church and state. No, there's no such thing. There's only, I would propose to you, separation between state and church. Government's supposed to stay out of the church's business. Big difference. Now, I want to tell you that because when we started coming into the civil rights movement, we started coming into the 70s, we can trace back the decline of our culture, like almost to the day when we look back, when we get into the 60s and 70s. I think it really started, I think it was 1962 when they started taking Bibles out of the schools, right? And then we had the big civil rights movement, 65. We had the law enacted in the 60s. And then we started coming into the 70s. We had Lyndon Johnson. So I want to tell you what started happening there. They knew that if they could obliterate the nuclear family and start taking God out, and the Marxist is who I'm talking about, people that follow the religion of Karl Marx, communism, basically. There was a very concerted effort in America to start to turn America communist. Now, they have to do it slow, right? It's boiling the frog. Can't just come into a free nation and lay that down. No, you got to do it methodically and slow. And they've been doing this since the 60s. They've tried to do it other times in America, but really concerted effort in the 60s. So here's what I think tipped it off. Lyndon Johnson, before he became president, he put forward the Johnson Amendment. The church being the moral compass of America, like we've established, he wanted to handcuff the church and say, we're gonna just shut the church up. And so here's what he did. And Lyndon Johnson was a Democrat. I just want to point that out. Okay, this has been the Democrat agenda since the 60s, these progressives. I'm not talking, my grandfather and his brothers and all, they were what they call blue dog Democrats. They were Democrats all their lives, but people don't really realize the difference between the Democrat and the Republican values. And I'm going to point those out in the next session real heavily. We're going to go deep into that. But for right now, I just want to show you what Democrat Lyndon Johnson did. He had this law written into the Internal Revenue Code. And look at this, you guys. It says this is for churches and all other 501c3 charities are absolutely prohibited from directly or indirectly participating in, intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for elective public office if they are to remain tax exempt. Contributions to political campaign funds in support or opposition to candidates are also prohibited. But pastors may campaign as individuals without any influence of the church. They're not, I don't know what that word is, imprimatur of the church, basically without support of the church. And churches may speak out on public issues so long as they don't devote a substantial part of their activities to attempting to influence legislation. Wow. So y'all know where a lot of the churches now, what we're seeing in our culture, a lot of the churches, they feel like their mouths have been closed. Like they've kind of got, again, handcuffs or kind of duct tape over their mouths of being able to weigh in on political issues. That clause is very specific. You can't endorse a candidate. You can't raise money for a candidate. You can't, be very adamant about your allegiance to any one party. But it doesn't say that the church, the pastors can't weigh in on these cultural issues. But out of fear of losing their tax exempt status, which basically means that if they have to pay taxes on their property mainly, then a lot of these churches would go under because they just couldn't afford to do it and maintain their staff and their pastor and all the expenses, the overhead of the church. So they are terrified of losing their tax exempt status. So they just stay away from politics. Just, you know what? We're just not going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the Lord. We're not going to talk about the culture. We're not going to talk about politics. Just put in the comments, why do you think, if it wasn't to shut the church up, why else do you think a Democrat, Lyndon Johnson, would come up with and impose such a law, such a rule? They wanted to shut the church up. All right, so that started happening. That was in 1954 is when that Johnson Amendment started happening. So like I said, coming into the 60s, that's what they were doing. They were trying to methodically break down God's design for self-governance and for the church to have any kind of impact on the culture. All right. So, and we also see a lot of churches walking on eggshells right now too, because they're scared to lose half their congregation. We're so polarized that if they lose some of their Democrat followers by standing for the Republican values, which are the conservative values that are rooted in godly principles. I'm not saying the Republican Party doesn't have corruption. They do. But the values of the Republican Party are most aligned with the Bible. The Democrats, especially these days, could not be more opposed to the Bible. They twist it and distort it and make you think that it's loving and compassionate. What would Jesus do? And all this. It's a distortion. It is a lie from the pit of hell. All right. But the pastors are scared to say that from the pulpit because they don't want to lose their Democrat donors to the church. It's just sick. I'm telling you, all of it is just, it's gotten so far out of control. All right. So those are the three areas of proof. Had to be a Christian to run for Congress, the Aitken Bible that was sent out to every American as a way to live our lives, and there's no separation between church and state. So I hope that all made sense. And that is how we know, there's other proofs too, but those are just the three I want to share with you. That's how we know our country was founded in Christian values. Now, you'll get a lot of people that will say that will really put down Christians. Nobody gives Christianity more of a bad name than horribly acting Christians. I used to see it before I was really walking with the Lord. I would see these Christians, the way they would behave, and I would roll my eyes too, and I'd go, hypocrite. We all do. Like if we're all puffed up and we are judgmental and we're looking down our noses at other people and we all are trying to outrighteous each other, right? Who's going to be attracted to that? Nobody's going to want to do that. There's a humility that's missing. There's a difference. Again, I was talking about earlier, knowledge versus wisdom. So important for us to understand those distinctions, because knowledge is, you can know every Bible verse. You can have gone to Sunday school since you were 5 years old. I don't care how much you sit in church, does not make you a Christian. You can sit in a garage. Joyce Meyer says you can sit in a garage all day. It doesn't make you a car, right? So you can know a lot about the Bible. Relationship with Jesus, yielding your life to him as Lord, letting him into every nook and cranny of your heart and in your life, and walking out your days with him being your guide and your king. That's a whole other animal. That's wisdom. Knowledge, wisdom. Okay, so we are missing the humility. A lot of Christians are just missing the humility. And they think, I was thinking about this, you guys. I wanted to show you this. I was thinking about when, when Jesus, we're coming up on Easter. Remember when Jesus was going into Jerusalem on the donkey? This is what Christians remind me of anymore. I just have this visual. Here's Jesus going into Jerusalem, Palm Sunday, leading up to his crucifixion. He's riding the donkey, just like scripture professed that he would. All these people are waving their palm branches at him, the Hosanna in the highest. They're all excited, and they're laying down their garments for the donkey to walk across. And this donkey's like all puffed up, right? He's all puffed up. He's like, look at what they're doing for me. Look at what they're doing for me, right? And there's nobody's doing that for the donkey. They're doing that for Jesus, right? Jesus is who they're praising. Jesus is who they should see. We are just the donkey carrying him. When we are Christians, we are just the donkey. We are not the ones that should be praised. We don't need to believe our own press. Like, that is not the way God intended it. When people see us, they should see him. We should be pointing people toward him, not us. All right, so here's where we get tripped up. Now, it's hard to influence other people when we come across as hypocrites, when we're easily offended all the time, when we're too attached to the outcome. Like, if you're trying to convince somebody, you're trying to force somebody to see your point of view, you're trying to just convert them. You want to see that conversion on the spot. They feel that pressure from you. That's why I say we've got to attract, not repel people. All right. And this is why it's so critically important for us to be walking out the Christian traits. And what are those Christian traits? We know in the Bible that we've got some housekeeping to do. We don't have to be fully, we're not trying to act perfect. It's not about our perfect behavior, but we definitely need to be exhibiting the traits that Jesus is trying to mold us into the image of him. We're supposed to be walking that out in our life. People should see a difference between us and the rest of the world. We are in the world, but we are not of the world. And so we've got some housekeeping to do in this area. Like, before we invite anybody over, right, we need to clean up our house. And the way we need to do that is we need to really understand the fruit of the Spirit and how to walk that out. And I just want to touch on this for a second in our last few minutes here. The fruit of the Spirit, a lot of us know, is love, joy, goodness, patience, kindness, humility, peace. And you see that big one I have there, self-control. That one's in big letters for a reason, you guys. Self-control. I want you to think about a couple of these words a little bit differently, maybe than you have in the past. Self-control. Well, let me start here. Joy, first of all, love and joy. Those two are so important. I think those two go together. Joy is different than happiness. Happiness depends on an outside circumstance, like there needs to be a vacation or a day at the spa, or maybe everybody's treating you right, or everything's going your way today. It's based on outside circumstances. That's happiness. That can bring you some happiness. Yeah, it can. Joy is a whole other thing. Joy means you have peace, God's peace that he already left with us. You have that no matter what the outside circumstances are. Like, the storm could be raging all around you. I'm talking about blowing you around, like stuff blowing all around your yard. Like, imagine like your worst storm. It could be a tornado. It could be a hurricane. It could be going on all around you, but the storm is not in you. You have peace in the eye of that storm, perfect peace, no matter what's going on out here. That's joy. And we get that when we grow in maturity with Christ. All right. But love, I just want to touch on love for a second, because you don't have to feel like loving somebody to love them. I did not know that for the longest time. Like, love is not about our feelings. And this is what the left has done. They have hijacked compassion. They have hijacked empathy. Again, twisted it, distorted it, made us as the church feel like we're not good people. We're not compassionate people if we're not going along with this insanity that they push. It's the devil's tactic. Like, he's had thousands of years to perfect this, you guys. This is not new. All right. We're just the next iteration, the next generation of it. But love, let me just show you the biblical definition of love. Love is patient, kind, not jealous, not boastful, not proud, not rude. It does not demand its own way. It's not irritable, keeps no record of being wronged, does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. Now, I want you guys to look at that slide for a second. Tell me how many of those words in there are about your feelings. It says not to be jealous, not to be boastful, not to be proud, not to be rude. But this does not have a PS after it that says, do all this only if you feel like it. Okay. Has nothing to do with our feelings. These are all action words. Be patient, be kind, don't be rude. Don't demand your own way. Don't be irritable. Don't keep a record of who's wronged you. Don't rejoice about injustice. These are all action words. Endure through every circumstance. So love has very little, if anything, to do with how you feel about it. Here's what I've learned about love. And it's hard. It's hard to learn, right? We're human. We have these emotions. God gave them to us. But here's what I've learned about love. You do what's right, and then eventually your feelings catch up. That's how it works. It works in reverse order. We think, well, when I feel like it, I'll do this. No, it's opposite in God's economy. You do what's right, and then your feelings catch up. That's the difference. All right. So that's love. And I want to prove it to you for those of you who are sitting there. And again, I can hear you from here. Well, I just can't help it. Whatever I say, whatever I think just comes out of my mouth. That's just the way I am. That's the way I was raised. That's the way mom and them did it. I hear you. I hear you. Okay. Do we want influence in our culture? Or do y'all want to stay stubborn about that? You want to keep your feet dug in the sand about that? Let me prove it to you. I'm going to play you a quick video here of Tricia Fenimore. She's got a huge following. She was just showcased on the Christian Network. And this woman could not have been a nastier atheist, liberal, addict about 10 years ago. And she came on my podcast and she absolutely proved what I'm saying. Because of course it's true, because it's Jesus's design. It's God's design. But let me just let you hear it directly from her. Here you go.
Come with love. And when we come with peace, we're bringing something different than what is going to put those walls up. And in fact, no matter how different and disparate our beliefs may be, if we come from a place of peace, those walls naturally come down, and it intrigues the spirit of the listener, the spirit that the listener might not even acknowledge that they have. But believe me, as a former atheist, it matters and it shows, because if you go to a person who's not a believer, not with the idea to lecture, not with the idea to wag a finger, but with the idea and the intention to understand, why don't you believe? And then let them get to know your heart without pressuring. Jesus never, I always say, Jesus never forced himself on anybody. I'm not going to do it either. He never argued on his behalf. I'm not going to do it either. There are enough people in this world who will have ears to hear, who are drowning drowning from the outcomes that the world has given, the outcomes that the world will always give. That when they come face to face with the living faith of Jesus Christ and Christianity, they cannot help but be intrigued. And that's what mattered to me, was it wasn't some group that it was just people speaking from their heart and taking the time not to judge me, even though they knew I was wrong. They knew I was wrong, but they didn't tell me that I was wrong. They just wanted to understand where I was coming from.
I rest my case. All right. So how do we take now a graceful stand for God among someone who's so hostile, maybe the way Trisha used to be? How do we not get rattled? How do we not bite back, right? How do we take that stand and not shrink back, not be bullied back into corners? Here's my secret weapon on this, you guys, and this is quick. When you're in that moment, two things. Number one, focus on her eyes or his eyes, not his mouth, not her mouth. The reason why I say that is because, like Dr. Wang, those who are blind, they can't see. If you're looking at their eyes, it's a reminder to you that this is someone who is blind. Because if someone understood the transformation power of Jesus Christ, they would never mock. They would never act like they do. God would be molding them into his image. So this is someone who is blind and they are bumbling around in the dark and they don't know what they're saying. Jesus said, forgive them. They know not what they do. So this is someone blind. So I want you to look at their eyes rather than what they're saying out of their mouth. Don't let their words be hitting you first. Look at their eyes and think to yourself, this is a person who is blind. They cannot see. So that's the first thing. That then will invoke your compassion, and that changes your body language. It changes your countenance, and it also changes your response. Okay. You're not going to be bullied by them. All right. But it does help you to take to put your feet on that solid ground and say, this is a blind person I'm dealing with. And then the next thing that you do under your breath, God, give me the words. God, give me the words. That's my secret weapon and I deal with some hostile people in my work nowadays. I look at their eyes. God, give me the words. That pause right there and going to him and saying, help me with this, Lord. He will do it. He is faithful. Words will come out of your mouth that you didn't put there. And that's him getting a chance to minister to them, even for that brief second. And you're putting yourself out of the way and you're letting God come through to that blind person in hopes that maybe you can plant a seed there that will linger, that will take root in them. All right, that's our hope. So that's how we take a stand. But I do want to say, too, that all of these things that I'm teaching you guys, this is for people who are willing to listen or at least willing to engage you in conversation. If it is just someone who just wants to fight, they have no interest in hearing your point of view or coming around to maybe some kind of compromise. Some people just love the mud. All right. And if you are dealing with somebody who just loves the mud, there's a pig in the mud. What does God tell us about that? Don't cast your pearls before swine. Just walk away. Just walk away. It's okay. You don't have to sit there and take it. You really don't. You don't have to. God does not want us to be abused by people. That's not his best for us. All right. So as we wrap up here, I just want to share something with you that I think is so important. Again, this will help you when you're dealing with people who are blind, who are lost, those people that we're trying to attract. We need to understand that we're not going to reach everybody. Remember what I was saying earlier, how we need to release the outcome. Don't be trying to pressure them into seeing your point of view, pressuring them into becoming a Christian, pressuring them into seeing your conservative values, whatever it is. You need to take your hands off the outcome. Our only job is to sow the seed. That's our only job. The harvest is none of our business. That's up to God. That's between God and them, their heart and God. That's it. We are removed from that outcome. So when we release the outcome, it changes the whole atmosphere of the conversation. And we understand our part to play, but we're not trying to be God. We're not trying to do what only he can do. Only he can change a person's heart. All right. So we're not going to win them all, but we can win a lot. If we start to clean up, we do this housekeeping in our own lives, we can win a lot of people. And I just want to leave you with this story. There's a, let me see if I can get it here real quick. There's a story that I heard that I thought was so profound about this point that I'm trying to make. There's a woman walking along the beach, and she notices that all of these starfish have washed up on the shore, and they're dying. They're laying there dying, hundreds of them. And they're, she's freaking out because she doesn't want them to die. So she's going through one at a time, and she's picking them up, and she's throwing them back out into the ocean, just slinging them back out into the ocean. And this man's watching from a distance, and he's like laughing at her. He's like, what's the point? They're all going to die. And as she picks the next one up, she says, well, it matters to this one. Matters to this one. As she throws that one back into the water, and it gets to live. So it's the same mentality when we're fishers of men, right? When we're trying to win people to Christ, win people to our values. We're not going to win them all. But what if we win one? What if we win 5? What if we can save, not that we can save, but what if we can lead people to God where he can save? Eternity, where they spend eternity, is the most important thing in the world. It is the most important thing in the world. Our impact that we can have on people for Christ as ambassadors for him is the most important thing in the world. So we better show up better, y'all. If we hope to win our culture back, we need to attract them. We need to give them something that they want and not just have them rolling their eyes at us. All right. So that's my lesson. And I'll tell you this too. Our kiddos are counting on us. We need to get this right. We need to do better. God can help us do it because the next generation and our grandkids' generation, they're counting on us. Reagan said we are one generation away from losing our freedom in America. One generation away. We're not going to let the freedom slip away on our watch. I'm not going to let you on my watch. All right. But we are not going to do that. I want you pinky swearing to me out there right now. Hold up your pinkies. I want you to pinky swear to me right now that you're going to heed everything I've said today. We're going to show up better, and we're going to recommit our lives to God, and we are going to walk in that obedience. We are going to do the hard work of forgiveness. We are going to do the hard work of obedience. We're going to root out that stuff. We're going to let God root out that stuff. We're going to invite him into every aspect, every nook and cranny of our lives, and we're going to start walking this out better. All right. I know it's hard to hear. I know it is, and that's okay. Sometimes we need to hear hard things. All right, you guys, next session, we're going to take a break for about 15 minutes. And next session, we're going to come back and we're going to break apart the Republican Party. I've got a good friend that's going to come on and help me do that. We're going to expose the underbelly of the Republican Party, and we're going to start working on how to heal the image of our party. Dance break in between, and I'll see you back in 15 minutes. Lady up.